Welcome back to the channel, I'm Austin, and it's time for the AK47 vs XM4, discussing which one is the best close-range AR within Warzone. First I'll go over the stats, then I'll give you my opinion and tell you the best class setups at the end. We're going to go over the most important stats for ARs within Warzone. So start off with max bullet velocity. The AK47 will be slightly ahead of the XM4, and I mean slightly, with an 1180 to 1175 advantage. This is going to make no difference between the weapons because they're so close that you aren't even going to notice the difference. And the bullet velocities are great and way above what they need to be within the meta. If we're going to take a look at fire rate, we can see that the XM4 is going to come out ahead with a 721 round per minute to 600 advantage. The XM4 has an average fire rate while the AK shoots pretty slowly. This gives the XM4 the benefit of being more forgiving when you miss your shots. More bullets downstream is always beneficial. Now let's see how much damage these weapons do. The AK-47's average damage at close range is going to be 40.5 compared to 33.75 for the XM4. This advantage will also hold true at long range with a 36 to 30.25 advantage. Now if we take a look at the full damage breakdown, we're going to be looking at head, chest, stomach, and limb damage. We can see that both have a similar damage profile where they both have consistent damage from the chest to the limbs. This makes these weapons much easier to use while being super consistent. The best weapons typically don't have damage drop-offs from chest to limbs. You always want the minimum of the chest and stomach damage to be equal, so you have a big target area that you can hit to keep a good TTK. These ones surpass that. This means you can't make these weapons TTK worse by aiming too low or aiming out at their limbs. You can only make it better by getting headshots. This is a good recipe for weapons in Warzone, and the most likely TTK at close range is going to go to the AK-47 with a 600 millisecond compared to an ominous 666 milliseconds for the XM4. The AK-47 only takes 7 shots to kill, and you can hit any part of the body for this TTK. The XM4 will take an extra 2 shots to kill at 9, and you can hit these 9 shots to the toe and you'll still unlock players. This makes both of these weapons feel very good, where the XM4 has the advantages that you only need 1 headshot to lower its TTK to 583 milliseconds. The AK-47 will, however, need you to get 2 headshots to lower its TTK, all the way to an impressive 500 milliseconds. Going for headshots is going to be worth it on both these weapons at close range, and before we switch over to the long range TTK, let's actually talk about the range of these weapons. And the AK-47 is going to have a slight advantage with a 25 meter range compared to 22 meters for the XM4. This is a pretty nice benefit for the AK-47. Moving on to long range TTK, the AK-47 will once again have the better TTK with 700 milliseconds to 749. The AK-47 will take 2 less shots to kill with an 8 to 10 advantage. This is significant because the more shots it takes to kill, the more likely you are to miss shots, especially at long range. And for both these weapons, you just need to hit 10 or 8 shots respectively anywhere on the body for these TTKs. The XM4 will once again only need 1 headshot to lower its TTK to 666 milliseconds. The AK-47 will also be able to lower its TTK with 2 headshots back to 600 milliseconds. The XM4's TTK will also lower if you can get 3 headshots to 583 milliseconds. I think it's easy to see that both these weapons will feel super consistent and can easily lower their time to kills with headshots. It will be a little easier with the XM4 because you're only going to need 1 headshot versus 2 for the AK, and this is across all ranges for both weapons. One advantage the XM4 definitely has over the AK-47 is going to be accuracy. The XM4 has an easy to control recoil after the first few shots. The XM4 is one of these weird weapons where the first 5 bullets come out with quite a bit of kick, but then it turns into a beam, so you just have to get over the first couple bullets and then it's going to be super easy to hit all your shots. Whereas the AK-47's recoil is a little bit difficult, especially after this last patch, where it does have horizontal and vertical recoil, and at the end of the day, it's just going to be easier to aim the XM4. And now taking a look at damage per mag, the AK-47 will come out ahead with a crazy 2,430 to 2028 advantage. This stat is more important the bigger the mode, making it the most influential within quads, where both weapons have plenty of firepower. Switching over to close range damage per second, these weapons are basically identical, where the XM4 is a bit better with a 406 DPS to 405. Basically, this just means you can have more damage output at close range with the XM4. Fun fact, a higher DPS just means the weapon will have a better TTK on average. You know that the AK's base time to kill is higher than the XM4's, but because of that 1 headshot TTK being lower, that's why this DPS is going to be a little bit higher. Finally, moving over to the movement stats, the XM4 will have a quicker ADS, strafe speed, and ADS movement. While they have an equal movement and sprint sprint to fire time. I think it's clear to see that the XM4 has superior mobility. Having better movement is a big advantage during close range gunfights. The advantage of using ARs, however, as close range options is that you have better range and more damage per mag, and so while movement is nice, it isn't the main factor in deciding between which will be better. If you guys could do me a quick favor and like the video, it really helps, maybe even subscribe as well. Alright, I've given you all the relevant stats for these weapons and it's time for my verdict. The AK-47. The AK's base TTK is better while also having more damage output at close range. It has a better TTK than the MAC-10 if you account for the max open bolt delay. This thing is great up close while having more range than any SMG. The XM4 is a great option as well if you value its movement and ability to get an amazing TTK with one headshot. The recoil isn't a big deal when we're using these weapons as SMGs basically. These weapons work great in any mode, whether it's Resurgence or regular BR. I think that these ARs are underutilized in close quarters combat. Most SMGs have similar TTKs as ARs up close, which is pretty strange. The developers have over-nerfed most of the premier SMGs within Warzone, making them less integral to use as a close range option. We're going to start with my suggested close range AR, the AK-47, and what I'm going to be doing is trying to get those movement stats up to make it more like a sub while also making the accuracy better and giving it an extended mag. So we're going to start with the suppressor, and this gets us ADS, bullet velocity, and sprint to fire speed, so these are all going to make its handling stats way better, and we're not looking to extend the range so we don't use the GRU. So we're going to skip over the barrel, laser, and optic, and we're moving all the way over to this stock, and we're going to use the KGB skeletal stock. You could also use the PKM if you want. The ADS firing move speed, aim walking movement speed, and sprint to fire time is the most important. We're not really focusing on hip fire because it's already an AR, so its base hip fire is going to be lower. We're going to be making this an ADS build, and the sprint to fire time is probably the most important stat to increase on these weapons to make them perform better than SMGs. Then we're going to go over to the rear grip, and we're going to put on the Serpent grip. You could also use the GRU elastic wrap if you want, but I'd rather use this aim down sight plus because the sprint to fire time being a little bit knocked isn't quite as bad as using the GRUs. And then from there, we always got to use the extended mag like I already mentioned, and we're going to go with the 45 round because this only affects our reload quickness, where if we use the 60 round, it would affect our ADS, and since we're making this our close range SMG basically, we got to use the 45 round mag. And then for the last thing, we're going to be using the Spetsnaz grip just because this AK, especially after the patch, does have quite a bit of recoil on it, so if we can fix the horizontal and vertical recoil, this thing is going to be perfect. So we're really just focusing on using this AK-47 out to 25 meters, and this thing is going to handle amazingly, and it's going to fry people up close. Now we're going to move on over to the XM4, which is also amazing up close, just like the AK-47. And we're going to be building it the same exact way with one exception. So I'm going to just put out the attachments that are the same. So we're going to use the suppressor, Raider pad, Serpent grip, and the 45 round mag. So this is the same as the AK-47, but if you recall, the XM4 only has problems with its first few bullets for accuracy, and then it's a beam, and we're only using this out to 22 meters because that's its max damage range. And basically, we don't need this field agent grip. So what are we going to flip it with? There's two attachments you can go. I don't like the iron sights, so I like to use this Microflex LED, and it makes me aim perfectly with it out to 22 meters. And then if you don't want to use the LED for the optic and you're fine with the iron sights, you should probably use the Tiger Team Spotlight because it gets your base movement speed up, which is going to be really key on making this thing act like an SMG. But for me, I personally would go with the Microflex LED, and if you want to know what long-range SMG to pair with this, I got the perfect video for you right here, and if you want to just know another long-range option, I'll have another one linked below that. But I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.